Many of you gardeners might not have room in your kitchen or sunroom for a large plant like this to overwinter it through the winter. So you can take cuttings, and I want to give you a few tips on the best way to have good success in rooting those. Now with this geranium, these cuttings are way too big to root, but we're going to trim them down to size and get them ready to put them in pots. And the first thing you want to do is trim away any blossoms that are on there, because blossoms take a lot of energy out of a plant, and if you're trying to get all the sugars and food in this stem to make roots, you don't want energy going into blooming. Also, if there are any buds that are forming, like here's one right here at the tip, just pinch that out. Now on plants, when you're taking cuttings, the area where the roots emerge are where the areas also where leaves have come out. And these are called the nodes. And it's important that at least one of those be below the soil line and have one or two above the soil line. So what I'm going to do is cut this right here so that we can have roots emerge right here. Trim away a few more leaves. And then the next step is dip it in water and moisten the stem. And then put a little bit of rooting hormone on the part of the plant that's going to be below the soil line. It doesn't take very much. What I like to do is just spoon a little over it. And you can get rooting hormone at most garden centers. It usually comes in a little packet and it only takes a tiny amount. I usually like to shake some out into a shallow container and then just spoon it over the top. Have your hole already prepared in your pot of soil, and you can use either sand or perlite or vermiculite. I happen to have a very well drained potting soil that I've already pre-moistened. I've already made my hole, so when I stick the cutting in, the rooting hormone is not wiped off by the friction of going into the soil. And then press that down in there, firm it in. And the next step is to make a little mini greenhouse. Just take a plastic bag and slip it over the top. I already have one done back here, and you can't see in the sack, the moisture is already collected. Now normally you'd be doing this in your house. We're out here because the light is good. Another thing is that once you take your cuttings, don't have them in direct sun. It's a good idea to have them in indirect light. Check them daily to make sure they don't dry out, and make sure that the leaves are not in direct contact with the plastic, because they could start to rot. If any leaves from your cuttings do rot, open up the plastic and remove those from the sack. They should root in 1 to 2 weeks, depending on the species of plant that you choose to root. Once they do root and start to grow, you can either put holes in the plastic and ease them out of their humid environment and ease them into the dry environment of your home. You can also just loosen the sack and then eventually remove it. Some other things that you can have good success on taking cuttings of from the garden in the fall: you can do petunias, you can also do lantana. We talked a lot about lantana. This is a lantana cutting I took from these plants just a few moments ago. And again, I've taken off all the blossoms and stripped the lower leaves. I have 2 nodes here that will develop roots for me once I stick that down in the soil. The other thing I've taken cuttings from are begonias. Begonias make beautiful gifts around Christmas time. Again, just take a cutting that's 4 to 6 inches long, and they're very succulent. You can just pinch off any of the lower leaves, and they're very floriferous. Make sure you take all those flowers off, because again, that's a drain of energy on the plant. And as any new flower buds develop, be sure that you take those off also.